The advances in technology in the past 150 years have made photographs and the ability to take photographs much easier for the everyday person. Evolving from large film cameras to compact digital cameras, and now practically every phone has a built-in camera regardless of the price. There's a large portion of history in which photographs are vital, because without them we simply wouldn't know for sure many different events. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 historical photographs which have a chilling background. Mongolian Woman Trapped in Starvation Box. This photo, which was taken, is quite disturbing, showing a Mongolian woman trapped inside a coffin-like box barely big enough for her to move around at all. This photo was taken during the travels of Albert Kahn. Albert was a French photographer who had earned his fortune during his time as a banker. Considered a pioneer of early colour photography, Albert took this photo in 1913 during one of his expeditions to Mongolia. Albert couldn't help the woman due to it being against the well-known directive of anthropologists that would prohibit interfering in different cultures for one, but also legal systems in different countries. The Mongolian woman depicted in the photo is a prisoner inside a large wooden crate. What's even more disturbing is that this crate, with the prisoner trapped inside, would be left in a remote desert location with the intention of causing the prisoner to die of starvation or dehydration. It was used as a form of slow execution. There would have been bowls laid outside the box. These would be filled with water in order to prevent the prisoner from dehydration quickly, but these bowls wouldn't have been refilled a second time. In fact, the prisoner was even allowed to beg anyone passing for food and water, but in most circumstances this would just prolong the prisoner's life in vain, and simply just continue the suffering. This is because any food or water the prisoner would get would more than likely not be enough to last another day or so. After learning the horrific story behind this photo, many wondered of the crime that she must have committed to end up in this situation. Well, allegedly, she committed adultery. However, this story has been disputed over the years, and the definitive truth is yet to be known. Chicago 1948. Lucille Chalafoux and her husband sold their 4 children. This story seems almost completely unbelievable by today's standards, that 4 young children would have actually been put up for sale by their own mother. The newspaper this photograph appeared in was called the Vedette Messenger of Valparaiso. What's more tragic is the caption that accompanied this photo on the pages. It reads in large writing, "A for sale sign in the Chicago yard mutely tells the tragic story of Mr. and Mrs. Chalafoux, who faced eviction from their apartment." With no place to turn, the jobless coal truck driver and his wife decided to sell their 4 children. Lucille turns her head from the camera above, while her children stare wonderingly. Her 4 children were Lana, age 6, Ray, age 5, Milton, age 4, and Sue Ellen, age 2. Initial thoughts on this photo were that it simply couldn't be real, and even the family members of the pair had accused Lucille of staging the photo in exchange for payment. Whilst it's not known if this is true or not, the fact that she indeed wanted to sell her children was undoubtedly true. Lucille was in fact pregnant at the time of the photograph was taken, and within just 2 years, the 4 children in the photograph and the baby she was carrying at the time had all been sold off to new homes. Of the children in the photograph, 3 of the siblings were sold to a family on the 27th of August 1950. Their new family changed their names from Ray to Beverly and Milton to Kenneth, but unfortunately for the children, their living situation didn't get much better. They would often be chained up inside the barn and continuously forced to work very long hours out in the field. Ray and Milton were never legally adopted by the family, but their brother David, who hadn't been born at the time of the photograph, as Lucille was still pregnant with him, was actually adopted by the McDaniel family. Fortunately for David, he stated that whilst his adoptive parents had been strict, they were supportive and loving towards him. David also recalled cycling to where his siblings were and unchaining them before having to return home. Milton would end up spending some time in a mental hospital. Because of suffering years of unrelenting abuse, he began to react in a rage of violence and was deemed a menace to society by the judge. Milton had actually chosen to go to the mental hospital over a juvenile detention centre after being given that choice by the same judge. Ray would go on to suffer a horrific traumatic experience. This experience resulted in a pregnancy. She was then sent to a home for pregnant girls and had her baby adopted after she returned. The other children in the photograph, Sue Ellen and Lana, were out of contact with the other siblings for many years before finally reconnecting with the help of social media. Sadly, Lana passed away of cancer in 1998. Sue Ellen, however, was actually alive and had been brought up relatively close to her first home. Lucille, the woman in the photo, went on to remarry and give birth to 4 more children. Some of the children in the initial photograph actually visited her later in life. During the visit, she was described as completely lacking love and didn't have any regret about selling them all those years ago. The horrific tale of Blanche Monia. The story of Blanche Monia started in 1876. Blanche was a French socialite and she was looking for love. In 1876, she was 25 years old and ready to settle down and marry. She was also partially desperate to marry so she could move out of her mother's house. A short time later, Blanche fell in love with an older gentleman who was a lawyer. In love with this man, she desperately wanted to marry him, but her mother was completely against this relationship. However, she simply didn't care. In her mind, this was the man that she was going to marry. Her mother begged her to call off the wedding, but she refused, and a horrible argument ensued. Blanche's mother now knew that no matter what she said or did, she was still going to marry this man, so she went as far as to lock her in a small attic room in their house. This room had barricaded shutters, which meant no light could enter the room. Her mother continued to plead, saying she'd be let free if she called off the marriage. Again, Blanche refused. Blanche would refuse to call off the wedding, even if it meant she would never see her future husband ever again, and sadly, she never would. Her lover passed away in 1885, and at this time Blanche was still being held captive, surviving off scraps of food. The family got away with locking her up for so long without anyone knowing due to faking her death. The story ended in 1901, 25 years after she'd first been locked away. French police were given a note. Scribbled over this note was a claim that simply said something weird was happening at the Monia estate, and even went on to say that some screams could be heard. Police went to investigate as a matter of just writing it off. After initially ignoring the police, Madame Monia would end up making the police suspicious, so the police kicked down the front door and were immediately taken aback by the smell coming from Blanche's room. Upon entering, they found a now 50-year-old Blanche in a horrible situation. She was dangerously malnourished and had suffered severe damage to her mental health. Her mother and brother claimed that Blanche did this to herself and could have simply left at any time. They received minimal sentences, and Blanche's mother would die just 15 days into her sentence, whereas her brother, a lawyer, managed to avoid his 1-year sentence. Blanche, now 50, would sadly spend the rest of her years in a mental health institute, without any real justice for her 25 years of suffering. So what do you make of these chilling historical photographs? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and help us by growing this community, whilst working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.